All right. Get ready for a deep dive, you guys, into the world of biology.
Yeah.
Today we're exploring how our bodies defend against infectious diseases.
Right.
You can think of it as a personalized biology class,
Exactly like a biology class just for you.
but way more fun than high school, hopefully.
Absolutely.
And to guide us through this, we have an expert in the field.
Happy to be here.
Before we get into the specifics,
Yeah.
let's start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly do we mean by health and disease?
Well, health, it's not just about feeling good. It's a state of complete well-being, physically, mentally, socially.
Right, it's a holistic thing.
Exactly. And disease, that's anything that disrupts that balance. And it can be caused by a bunch of things, not just pathogens, like we're going to talk about today.
Right. But today we are focusing on infectious diseases.
Yes.
The ones that we
Yeah.
can, catch from others.
That's right.
And within that category, there are a whole bunch of different, microscopic troublemakers.
A whole range. Yeah.
Bacteria, viruses, parasites.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between a pathogen and a parasite?
Okay, so all parasites are pathogens because they cause harm, but not all pathogens are parasites.
Okay.
Some pathogens, like certain bacteria, they cause a quick illness, but they don't really stick around.
Okay.
Parasites, on the other hand, they're in it for the long haul. They live on or in us.
Like a bad roommate.
Yeah, exactly.
They overstay their welcome.
And they're causing problems the whole time.
So today we're going to talk about malaria, tuberculosis, and AIDS.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Why those three?
Well, they represent, different types of pathogens, and they have a huge global impact, especially in developing countries.
Right.
So they give us a good overview of how infectious diseases work and the challenges we face in combating them.
All right, let's start with malaria. What makes this one so dangerous?
Malaria is caused by this tiny parasite called Plasmodium, and it spreads in a really sneaky way. It uses mosquitoes as a delivery system.
So the mosquito is like a little flying syringe.
Exactly. It's injecting the parasite right into our blood.
Wow.
And then once inside, that parasite sets up shop in the liver and red blood cells, and that disrupts blood flow to vital organs.
Okay.
So that's why malaria can be so serious, even fatal, if it's not treated.
It's amazing how something so small can cause so much damage.
It is. It's incredible.
What about tuberculosis?
Oh,
How does
yeah.
that spread?
Tuberculosis, or TB, it's caused by a bacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis,
Okay.
and it spreads through the air. So when someone with active TB coughs or sneezes, they release these tiny droplets with the bacteria in them, and other people can inhale those.
So just breathing can put you at risk.
Yeah, especially in crowded or poorly ventilated areas.
Okay.
And here's the thing about TB. A lot of people who are infected don't show any symptoms.
So they're like silent carriers.
Exactly. They're like typhoid Mary.
But if their immune system weakens, then the infection can become active.
Right, and that's when it gets really serious.
That's pretty scary. Let's move on to AIDS. What makes that one so different?
AIDS is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, and is particularly bad because it attacks the immune system itself, specifically these white blood cells called T cells.
I know white blood cells are important for fighting infection. How does HIV do that?
Well, HIV is a retrovirus, which means it inserts its own genetic material into the host cell's DNA. So it takes over the machinery of the T cell and uses it to replicate and produce more viruses.
So it's like a hostile takeover from within.
Exactly. And in the process, it destroys the very cells that are supposed to protect us.
And without enough T cells, our bodies are vulnerable to all sorts of infections.
Exactly. That's why HIV infection can progress to AIDS or acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And the weakened immune system can't fight off even minor infections.
So how is HIV transmitted?
It's mainly transmitted through unprotected sex, sharing needles, or exposure to infected blood. It can also be passed from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or breastfeeding.
So malaria, tuberculosis, and AIDS, they all have their own unique characteristics. But one thing they all have in common is that they disproportionately affect developing countries.
That's right.
Why is that?
Well, limited access to healthcare, education, and resources, all those things play a significant role.
It's kind of sobering to think about. With all these threats out there, how do our bodies even stand a chance?
That's where things get really interesting. Our bodies are equipped with an amazing defense system, the immune system. It's a complex network of cells and processes that protect us from these invaders.
Okay, I'm ready for Immunity 101. What's our first line of defense?
Well, think of your body as a castle with multiple layers of defense. The first line is like the outer wall, your skin and mucous membranes.
Our skin, it seems so simple.
Don't underestimate the power of your skin. It's a tough physical barrier that blocks most pathogens from entering. Plus, it produces antimicrobial chemicals. And it has a slightly acidic pH, which makes it hostile to many microbes.
Okay, so our skin is like a bodyguard, keeping the unwanted guests out. What about mucous membranes? What are those?
Mucous membranes, they line all the openings in your body that are exposed to the outside world, like your mouth, nose, respiratory tract.
Okay.
They secrete mucus, that sticky substance that traps pathogens.
So mucus is like flypaper for pathogens.
Exactly. And it gets even better. Mucus also contains antimicrobial enzymes, which can break down those trapped invaders.
That's pretty clever.
It's a pretty ingenious system.
So our skin and mucous membranes work together to keep those pathogens at bay. But what happens if they manage to sneak past these outer defenses?
That's when our immune system kicks into high gear. It's like sending in the special forces.
Bring on the special forces.
These are the lymphocytes, another type of white blood cell. They're the key players in what we call the adaptive immune response. There are two main types, T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, or T cells and B cells for short.
T cells and B cells, got it. What makes them so special?
T cells are like highly trained soldiers, each equipped with specialized receptors that can recognize specific enemy antigens.
Hold on, back up a sec. We talked about antigens earlier. Remind me what those are.
Antigens are like unique ID tags found on all cells, including pathogens. Our immune system uses these antigens to distinguish friend from foe.
Right, they're like cellular fingerprints. So T cells have receptors that can scan these fingerprints and identify the invaders.
Exactly. And when a T cell's receptor encounters its matching antigen, it's like finding the perfect key for a lock. This triggers the T cell to activate, a process called clonal selection.
Clonal selection, it sounds like the immune system is choosing the right weapon for the job.
That's a great way to put it. Once activated, the T cell starts dividing rapidly, creating an army of clones, all with the same antigen specificity. This is called clonal expansion.
So it's creating a specialized task force targeting that one specific invader.
Exactly.
Pretty efficient. What do these T cell clones do once they're activated?
Well, they have different roles depending on their specialization. Some called helper T cells, they act like coordinators. They release signals that activate other immune cells, including B cells, to join the fight.
So helper T cells are like the generals, directing the immune system's strategy.
A perfect analogy. Other T cells, called killer T cells, are the frontline soldiers. They directly attack and destroy infected cells.
A true seek and destroy mission. Now what about those B cells? What's their role?
B cells are the antibody factories of the immune system. They produce those Y-shaped proteins we call antibodies, which are specifically designed to bind to a particular antigen.
Okay, antibody. I've heard of those, but how do they actually work?
Imagine antibodies as guided missiles, each programmed to lock onto a specific target, the invader's antigen. When an antibody binds to its target, it can neutralize the invader. It's like putting handcuffs on a criminal.
So they disable the enemy. What else can they do?
They can also act as tags, marking the invader for destruction. Antibodies can coat the invader, making it easier for those Pac-Man-like phagocytes to recognize and engulf it. This process is called opsonization.
It's like putting a big eat me sign on the invader.
Exactly. And antibodies can also cause agglutination, which means clumping the invaders together, making it even easier for phagocytes to eliminate them.
Wow, antibodies are like multi-purpose weapons. They can neutralize, tag, and clump those invaders. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But with all these different cells and actions happening, how does everything stay coordinated? How do all these cells communicate with each other?
Great question. Cells communicate through a complex language of chemical signals. These signals tell other cells to activate, divide, differentiate, or even die.
So it's like a microscopic communication network, keeping the immune system running smoothly.
Precisely. For example, helper T cells release signals that activate B cells and killer T cells, ensuring a coordinated and effective immune response.
This is incredible. Our immune system is like a well-oiled machine, with each part playing a specific role. But how does our body know when the battle is over? How does it wind things down and prevent an overreaction?
Another great question. Once the invader is under control, the immune response needs to be regulated to prevent damage to our own tissues. This is where regulatory T cells come in. They act like peacekeepers, suppressing the activity of other immune cells and preventing the immune response from spiraling out of control.
So they're like the brakes on the immune system.
Exactly. And once the danger has passed, most of the activated immune cells die off, leaving behind a small population of memory cells.
Memory cells, what are those?
Memory cells are like the veterans of the immune system. They remember a specific invader and can mount a much faster and stronger response if that invader ever returns.
So it's like having a security system that remembers past intruders.
Precisely. This is the basis of immunity. It's why we don't usually get sick from the same pathogen twice, or at least not as severely.
That makes sense. But I've heard of different types of immunity. What's the difference between active and passive immunity?
Active immunity is what we've been discussing so far. It's the immunity we develop when our own immune system fights off an invader and creates memory cells.
So it's like earning our immunity through experience.
Exactly. We acquire active immunity naturally by getting infected, or artificially through vaccination.
Vaccines, the ultimate shortcut to immunity.
You could say that. Vaccines contain weakened or inactive versions of a pathogen, or even just pieces of its antigens. This triggers our immune system to create memory cells without actually causing the disease.
So it's like a training exercise for our immune system.
Precisely. Vaccines are one of the most powerful tools we have for preventing infectious diseases.
And what about passive immunity? How is that different?
Passive immunity is when we receive pre-made antibodies from another source. Our own immune system doesn't have to do any work. It's like borrowing someone else's immunity.
Interesting. So where do these borrowed antibodies come from?
A classic example is the immunity babies receive from their mothers. Antibodies pass from the mother to the baby through the placenta and breast milk, providing crucial protection while the baby's own immune system is still developing.
Mothers truly are superheroes. What are other examples of passive immunity?
We can also acquire passive immunity artificially through injections of antibodies. This is often used as a treatment for certain infections, like rabies or tetanus, where a quick boost of antibodies can help fight off the pathogen before our own immune system has time to respond.
So it's like calling in the cavalry for immediate support.
Exactly. Passive immunity provides immediate but temporary protection. It doesn't create memory cells, so the immunity eventually fades.
Okay, so we've got active immunity, which is long-lasting and built by our own immune system, and passive immunity, which is temporary, but provides that quick shield when we need it most. Now let's talk about the flu. Why do we need a new flu shot every year? I thought once you had the flu, you were immune.
That's where the influenza virus gets really clever. It's a master of disguise, constantly changing its surface antigens. It's like the flu virus is wearing a new costume every year, making it harder for our immune system to recognize it.
So our immune system is always playing catch-up with the flu virus.
Exactly. These antigenic changes mean that the memory cells we developed from previous flu shots or infections might not recognize the new strains of the virus.
That's why scientists have to develop new flu vaccines every year, targeting the strains they predict will be circulating.
Precisely. It's an ongoing arms race between our immune system and the flu virus.
This whole discussion about vaccines and immunity makes me think, where do these medicines come from?
That's a great question, and it leads us to an important point: the connection between biodiversity and medicine.
Biodiversity? You mean all the different plants and animals in the world? What does that have to do with medicine?
You might be surprised to learn that many of our most important medicines are derived from natural compounds found in plants, animals, and microorganisms. Think about penicillin, one of the first antibiotics. It's produced by a fungus, and some of our most powerful cancer-fighting drugs come from soil bacteria. Even the daffodil, a common garden flower, is now being used to produce a drug for Alzheimer's disease.
That's incredible. So nature's like a giant pharmacy.
In a way, yes, and we've only scratched the surface of what's out there. There are countless species we haven't even studied yet, and they could hold the keys to curing diseases we thought were incurable.
So protecting biodiversity is not just about saving cute animals. It's about safeguarding our own health and future medical discoveries.
Absolutely. Every time we lose a species, we lose potential medicines and solutions.
That's a powerful thought. Makes you realize that the natural world isn't just something beautiful to admire. It's a vital resource for our well-being.
It really is. It underscores the importance of scientific research and conservation efforts. We need to understand these complex systems and protect the incredible diversity of life on Earth.
It's like we're all connected in this intricate web of life. And disrupting that balance can have far-reaching consequences.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and dive deeper into the fascinating world of antibodies. We've talked about their functions, but how is it that our bodies can produce antibodies against virtually any pathogen we encounter?
That's a great question. It seems like our immune system has an almost infinite arsenal of weapons ready to deploy.
It's truly remarkable. The secret lies in something called antibody diversity. Think of it like this. Our genes for antibodies are like a deck of cards.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Each card represents a different gene segment, and these segments can be shuffled and combined in countless ways to create a vast repertoire of unique antibodies.
So it's like shuffling a deck of cards, each hand representing a different antibody.
That's a great analogy. This process, known as VDJ recombination, allows our immune system to generate an astonishing diversity of antibodies, potentially billions or even trillions of different combinations.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So no matter what kind of pathogen we encounter, our immune system can create a custom-designed antibody to fight it.
In most cases, yes. This incredible system of antibody diversity is one of the key reasons why our immune system is so effective.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered the basics of the immune system, explored different types of immunity, and even touched on the fascinating concept of antibody diversity. What else is important for us to know about our incredible defense system?
One important aspect we haven't discussed yet is the role of the lymphatic system. You can think of it as the immune system's surveillance network.
Okay, the lymphatic system. What is it and how does it work?
It's a network of vessels, tissues, and organs that helps to filter waste and maintain fluid balance in the body. But it also plays a critical role in immunity. Lymph nodes, which are small, bean-shaped organs located throughout the body, are like checkpoints along this network.
So how do these checkpoints contribute to immunity?
Lymph nodes contain high concentrations of immune cells, including lymphocytes and phagocytes. When pathogens enter the body, they often end up in the lymphatic system, where they're trapped and presented to these immune cells in the lymph nodes.
So the lymph nodes are like strategic outposts where immune cells can gather and launch their attacks.
Exactly. The lymphatic system acts as a surveillance network, filtering out pathogens and alerting the immune system to their presence. This allows for a more targeted and effective immune response.
That's amazing. It's like our body has this intricate system of communication and defense all working together to protect us from harm.
It is, and it highlights the incredible complexity and resilience of the human body. But remember, our immune system isn't invincible. It can be weakened by factors like stress, poor nutrition, and certain medical conditions.
So taking care of our overall health is essential for maintaining a strong immune system.
Absolutely. Getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, exercising regularly, and managing stress can all help to keep your immune system functioning optimally.
Well, this has been an incredible journey into the world of biology and the immune system. We've learned so much about how our bodies defend against those microscopic invaders. From the outer barriers of our skin to the specialized cells and intricate communication networks of the immune system. It's a truly remarkable system.
It is. And remember, this is just a glimpse into the vast and fascinating world of biology. There's always more to learn and discover.
So to our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep marveling at the incredible world of biology and the wonders of your own body.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about how your body works, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions about your health and well-being.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
It really is, and it shows just how important scientific research and conservation efforts are. We need to understand these complex systems, and protect the incredible diversity of life on Earth.
Yeah, it's like we're all connected, in this big web of life. And if we mess with that balance, it can have some pretty serious consequences.
Exactly. Now, let's switch gears for a bit and dive deeper into these antibodies. We talked about how they work, but how is it that our bodies can produce antibodies against almost any pathogen we encounter?
That is a great question. It seems like our immune system has an endless supply of weapons.
It's pretty remarkable. The secret is something called antibody diversity. Think of it like our genes for antibodies are like a deck of cards.
Okay, I'm listening.
Each card represents a different gene segment, and these segments can be shuffled and combined in tons of different ways to create a huge variety of unique antibodies.
So like shuffling a deck of cards, each hand represents a different antibody.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. This process is called VDJ recombination, and it allows our immune system to generate an amazing diversity of antibodies, like billions, even trillions of different combinations.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So no matter what kind of pathogen shows up, our immune system can basically create a custom antibody to fight it.
Yeah, pretty much. This incredible system of antibody diversity. It's one of the main reasons why our immune system is so effective.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about the basics of the immune system, different types of immunity,
Yeah.
and even this antibody diversity thing. What else should we know about this incredible defense system?
One thing we haven't talked about yet is the lymphatic system. You can think of it as like the surveillance network of the immune system.
Okay, the lymphatic system. What is that and how does it work?
It's a network of vessels, tissues, and organs that helps to filter waste and maintain fluid balance. But it's also super important for immunity. Lymph nodes, those are small bean-shaped organs all over the body. They're like checkpoints in this network.
Okay, how do those checkpoints help with immunity?
Well, lymph nodes have a lot of immune cells, like lymphocytes and phagocytes. And when pathogens get into the body, they often end up in the lymphatic system, where they're trapped and presented to these immune cells in the lymph nodes.
So they're like strategic outposts, right? Where immune cells can gather and launch their attacks.
Exactly. The lymphatic system filters out pathogens and tells the immune system where they are, and this makes for a more targeted and effective response.
That's pretty incredible. Like our body has this whole system of communication and defense working together.
It does, and it shows how complex and resilient the human body is. But it's important to remember that our immune system isn't perfect. It can be weakened by things like stress, bad nutrition, and certain medical conditions.
So taking care of ourselves is important for keeping our immune system strong.
Absolutely. Getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, exercising regularly, and managing stress. All of that helps your immune system function at its best.
Yeah, that's true. It's easy to take our health for granted until something goes wrong.
Exactly. Prevention is always better than cure.
Well, this has been a fascinating journey into the world of biology and the immune system. Thanks for taking us through it. I feel like I've learned so much.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
So, to our listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the amazing world of the human body. And remember, stay curious, keep learning, and take care of yourselves.
And wash your hands.
Yes, always wash your hands.